quelle là, quelle grosse. Hello, so welcome to you all. Thank to all the participants for being here today with us. And the aim of today is to keep the spotlight on DSA and DMA and the good digital advertising. So that's the aim of IAA Italian chapter today. So and welcome to all the speakers. We are honored to have here today with us. So Mr. Brandon Benifei, it is not present here, a member of European Parliament who gave us a video to open the discussion. He's now in this moment being flying from Brussels to Rome, but he definitely wanted to be with us. So I would to thank him for that. Thank you for being here to Daniel Knapp, Chief Economist of IAb Europe, who gave us the inspiration with this report, the wider socio-economic and cultural value of targeted advertising in Europe. So thank you, Daniel, for the inspiration.
So thank you for...
Thank you. And Greg Mrtzowski, Direct Public Policy of IAb Europe. So thank you, Greg, for being here. And then Mariana Ghirlanda, more than welcome, CEO of DLV BBDO and President of UNA Study Center, so the Italian Advertising Agencies Association. And thank you to Roberto Lisce as well, President of Netcom. So welcome to the IAA session on DSA and DMA, and again, we are more than happy to have you here today. So just to set the foreground, as you probably know, IAA protects consumer and the marcom industry, and it is committed to supporting a balance between good lawmaking and continuous growth to a thriving advertising ecosystem, which represents 42% in Italy and 57% of the share of the advertising market in Europe. IAA Italian chapter has been working for more than a year to analyze together with the media community the implication of the DSA and all the things related to DSA and DMA on the media supply chain, not only in Italy but across Europe. As a global association, IAA, representing the marketing and communication industries, IAA Italy chapter has conducted various initiatives to protect online advertising, raising awareness of consumers, publishers, and institutions on the subject, and encouraging self-regulation in the sector of media. In September 2020, so almost more than 1 year ago, the IAA Italy chapter participated to the public consultation organized by the European Commission to discuss since the beginning the Digital Services Act together with the other stakeholders in the media community, and not only in the media community. Then in November 2020, we organized a roundtable with the main exponents of the players involved, entitled Digital Services Act and Advertising, the delicate balance between regulation and development of the advertising market in our path toward the discussion about DSA and DMA. As the president of the Italian chapter of the IAAs, I personally also brought to the towards the different roundtable and the webinar during this year in order to discuss and let know the other stakeholders the position of the Italian chapter position about the DSA and DMA. Assuming as IAA the role of global compass of marketing and communication industry, this is globally, but in Italy as well. We also promoted the manifesto in favor of digital advertising. Together, other association, and we were honored about that in the Mediterranean cluster. So these manifestos was signed together with IAA Italy, with IAB Spain, IAB Portugal, IAB Greece, UNA, and NetCom, and AEA, so the Spanish Advertisers Association. The manifesto was presented in May 2021 in a further digital advertising and DSA DMA roundtable with the major international exponents of the member of European Parliament and exponent of this association, very important association across the Mediterranean cluster, so from Spain, Portugal, Greece, and Italy. The manifesto in favor of digital advertising is split and divided into in 5 points. One is innovation, then transparency, consumer protection, freedom of use and access, and last but not least, legislative harmonization. So that's these 5 crucial points that we want to keep it alive and maintaining the spotlights open on these 5 key points from our side. What is important and for us is fundamental point of the manifesto is the reflection and the protection of good and safe targeted advertising to protect the entire supply chain of the media business. During the last time we have noted that some coalition and a priori movement against targeted advertising are emerging, and just to try to sum up and cite a few examples. For instance, the Norwegian Consumer Council shed lights on negative consequences that this commercial surveillance has on consumer and society. Together with other 55 associations and more than 20 experts, NCC is asking authorities on both sides of the Atlantic to consider a ban. So there are other numbers of different positioning about that. There's a number of senior member of parliament that have joined the tracking fee ads coalition, and we see growing political pressure on banning or restricting personalized acts emerging as an issue in a multiple policy files debates. So we can cite the Green member European Parliament with a new campaign and video that reaffirmed the position against targeted advertising. This is some example about that. But I think that the question are, will only big techs be hit by blocking targeted advertising? This is the main question. I think that we, pay attention and give an answer. And for the protection of consumer privacy, what value do laws such as GDPR, e-privacy, and those already in existence have, so already have? And the initiative carried out by the marcom industry such as TCF by IAB are not already moving in this direction to protect consumer without the need to embarrass an entire ecosystem. So these 3-4 key questions are the pivotal thing that we would like to discuss today in our debate. So having said that, so this is our foreground, and now I would like to start with the core of the program. Thanks to our I the floor to Daniel and Greg, respectively Chief Economist and Director of Policy of IAb Europe. So, Daniel, so the floor is for you and for your interesting presentation. So, I thought that's interesting because I had the chance to read through, and you are the Daniel and Greg. So, the floor is for you.
Again, here was our adaptation, which is the version of which looks at of the broader economic advertising brings to invite my colleague Greg to the police that independent economist in the study of IAb Europe. And this study it is a of previous three previous which look of who I'm going to the presentation. Kind of ones I want to make. The report, the full report to me is follows to make. The advertising is crucial for the proliferation to any businesses. So to particular we see targeted advertising European grow move from style up here for these businesses and so forth. Digital advertising will miss to the for the media on the importance in advertising enable business models. We speak about understand advertising in the sports paradigm. We end with the party cookies. Targeting entirely isn't entirely clear. Important is enough a full new approach developed. Approaches really redefining. Approaches on a identify. You have the logged in users.
Sorry, Daniel, I think that we cannot hear you. We cannot hear you well. So, could you please try to reconnect? In the meantime, we can share the video from Benifei, and then you can try to reconnect because we can't hear you very well. Or Greg, if you want to,
Thank you very much for the invitation.
take the floor. Okay. Okay, we can start with the video, and then we can comment the video. So Elisa can go.
Thank
You
you
can
very
go
much
ahead
for
with
the
the.
invitation. Unfortunately, I cannot be with you online in live, but I will try just to give a little contribution to this discussion. I think the topic you're dealing with is extremely important. In the end, it entails the significance of the rights of citizens. I'm recording this video from the conference on the future of Europe here in Strasbourg, and we are discussing about the meaning of European citizenship. And I think that also the capability of controlling your data and what is happening with your data and how other subjects interact with information about your preferences, your ideas, it's part of the way we conceive European citizenship. We know as Europe on the forefront of the data protection and with the GDPR, and we are also waiting now for new acts regarding data that will empower even more our continent in terms of protection of personal data, but at the same time to be able, I hope, to give space for the use of non-personal data and of personal data with in some context to empower our economy, our innovation. So we are in a very important moment, and obviously while working on DSA and DMA, we have been looking at the issue of the advertisement and the targeted advertisement. And I want to say just that we have an issue about understanding by users of what is being targeted at them, understanding what kind of targeted advertisement they are getting, and the kind of transparency on this that is today is still lacking too much. Otherwise, we won't be doing this regulation, this action of regulating if everything was okay. At least this is how I see it. I think that we need to act, but also we need to be careful that we don't hinder, that we don't cancel any innovation capability that we are able to develop through these business models based on the targeted advertising. We know about businesses that have thrived thanks to that, that are able to do very tailor-made indications and can grow their market, and this can be also helpful for consumers with some safeguards. So I hope that we will be able to reach a reasonable but also strong position that can empower consumers. We are still in the making of the actions of the parliament on the file, on our positions. We're still working on that. But I think that it will be important that we are able to strike a balance so that we are valuing the real, concrete, not theoretical, but real capability of users to be in control of the fact that they get or not targeted advertising and what kind of targeted advertising it is, and with transparency on what data is used, and also on the understandability of the way the algorithms work. I think that with these strong safeguards, real, not theoretical, we can have this kind of targeted advertising model. I don't think it would be a good solution to just ban completely any practice. I think we need to find a nuanced approach that will need still some work from the legislators, and also the capability to understand and to act accordingly from the platforms and the businesses involved in this kind of activity. I think it's a matter of trust. I'm working now as AI rapporteur of the European Parliament, and I know how much trust is important. It's crucial looking at this topic of AI, and it's the same for this issue. We don't want users to be unaware, manipulated, incapable of understanding, and being felt hit in their privacy, in their data protection. I think we can strike a balance, and I hope that your discussion, I will look forward to the conclusions of this discussion, will be able to give some more contribution to this ongoing work that we are doing now at the level of the European Parliament. And then we will have to do it also with the Council, with the governments. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and I hope I gave some tidbits of thought coming from what we are discussing now at the level of the Parliament. And I hope we will have another occasion of exchange very soon. Thank you very much.
So I think that's a very interesting thing that was described from Mr. Benifei, and I'm so curious, and I want to know the opinion of Greg. And then, but before of this, we try to recover Daniel, and I really hope that we can hear you. If you can, try your audio, and then if it
Absolutely.
works,
I hope you can
now
hear
it
me well.
works.
Yes?
Yeah, very well.
Wonderful.
Very well.
Good.
Then
Fantastic.
we keep the question for Greg after your presentation. So thank you, Daniel, for being back and forth. So
Thank
now
you
it
for your
works.
questions. That is fantastic.
Very good.
So I quickly want to speak again through the agenda so you haven't heard it. I want to make 4 arguments. The first one is really that targeted advertising is very important for the fuel of small and medium-sized enterprises in Europe, which are, as the European Commission says itself, the backbone of the European economy. Secondly, I want to stress, and I elaborate this in detail in my report, that a lot of these SMEs have a particular cultural value for Europe. So there are broader, not just economic, but also socio-cultural effects of targeted advertising that we should consider on the positive side. Thirdly, I want to stress that increasingly we are in a very vibrant European startup, scale-up, and IPO landscape. And the companies involved here, they do require targeted advertising for customer acquisition, churn reduction, and other ways. And it's very important that these businesses thrive if we want to create our European third way of digital innovation between the US on the one hand and China on the other. Then I would be amiss to not mention the fourth estate, i.e. the role of the media in our democratic society. And addressable advertising is a crucial revenue stream for publishers as they're managing their transition to online first or online only business models. Now, when we speak about targeting, very briefly, we're talking about something very different in the future than from the past. The world of third-party cookies is over. We are facing the certain deprecation of third-party cookies. Targeting in the future will be built on a spectrum of identifiability, as I call it, which is being built right now. On the one hand, you got logged in users, email addresses, and so forth, behavioral data on websites. Then you have shared IDs, i.e. identifiers between websites in order to allow cross-site analysis. But then you already move away from individual data to segments, to groups of people only, which is publisher segments. Publishers being interested or providing advertisers with golf lovers, travel aficionados, and so forth. And then you have another group-based approach, which is pioneered by Google in its sandbox and also other external market participants within the Chrome browser, for instance, which are using something called federated learning of cohorts, which means the analysis of personal data remains protected on the phone and only aggregates from the model are being uploaded to the cloud. So no personal data leaves the device. And then you have contextual advertising, which is anonymous by default, where there are no information about segments of people at all, but just segments about editorial context, about broader time of day, and so forth. So when we speak about targeting, this is the world of the future and not the world that's being phased out, which has often justifiably faced some criticism in the past. Digital advertising is crucial for rebooting the European economy. We've seen during the COVID pandemic that advertising was hit heavily. But since April 2020, we have progressively revised our forecasts upwards. And indeed, we moved from a very pessimistic scenario where digital advertising was going to decline to a very optimistic real-world scenario with digital ad spend, the AdX actuals, actually growing 6.3%. Whereas traditional media didn't grow at all. We saw on average a 20% decline throughout the year, and the forecasting didn't change much. The key engine behind this 6% growth were small and medium-sized businesses, because they realized they need digital advertising as the motor of growth as they are transitioning from a brick and mortar to a digital economy. And SMEs are important. We need to protect the vibrancy of our SMEs in Europe. And I was surprised how explicit even a bureaucratic body like the European Commission is about the value of SMEs, calling them the backbone of the European economy. Fundamentally, if we look at these quotes here, they see SMEs important for the future development agenda of European economy and society, to transition to, number one, a more sustainable economy, but secondly, also towards a more digital economy. But if the economy overall moves more towards the digital world, customers and services are also digital, which means they need to be acquired digitally. That's why digital advertising is important, and targeted advertising in particular, because it reduces wastage, i.e. it allows SMEs to target just the relevant consumers and not those which wouldn't buy anyways, for which they do not have the money to target them. SMEs are big business. We've got 21 million SMEs in Europe and 84 million people employed. And in many economies in Europe, as the statistics here show, SMEs are the main source of employment. So it's important that we keep those SMEs not just in business, but enable them to a path for growth. But COVID-19 has impacted SME revenues considerably. Here's a study of the Big Five, and actually Italy stands out here in this McKinsey study, where the majority of SME owners says that their revenues due to COVID have been reduced somewhat or reduced greatly. At the same time, where this pessimistic picture is being painted, we see a new renaissance of company building. Here's data from Eurostat, which shows us that we have the highest growth in new company business registrations in the EU 27 as we're moving out of the pandemic. And many of these businesses are digital businesses with a digital business model addressing consumers with digital goods and services or selling things online. And indeed, now more than 2/3 of the overall internet population in Europe uses e-commerce. There was strong growth in 2020. And we can see, if we look at the statistics here, in the vast majority of countries, we actually have over 50% of consumers using goods or services for private use online. Italy, we see actually lagging behind here. So there's massive potential for Italy as a market to catch up. And we shouldn't hamper this possibly by making it more difficult to monetize e-commerce. SMEs, in fact, haven't been silent during the pandemic. They have built and changed hard. This quote here from Accenture, I think, really captures very well the essence of being an SME, or SMB as they call it, during the pandemic. They are reliant on online channels, and they've been running their business during the day, but underwent structural transformation towards a digital business model at night. And you could see fundamentally, this is a crucial chart here from the US, but the same applies to Europe, that they saw digital advertising not as a expenditure that they could cut, but actually as a pivotal lifeline for their business during the pandemic. On the very left, the moment in March 2020. The news of the pandemic are just hitting Europe. And many marketers think we need to spend less, or we're holding steady and are seeing how the situation develops. But very few thought about spending more. However, already in April, the first month of full lockdown, where business moved online, perception among SMEs changed. So we saw the proportion of those who said we're going to spend less, and this was mainly travel businesses, by the way, that proportion went down. And more said, hey, we need to hold steady. We need to continue to advertise during these difficult times to capture new business. And actually, some even increased their spend. And now, fast forward to September, and you see an entirely different situation where spend is returning. Digital ads, in fact, are crucial for SMEs, much more important than any other form of advertising. So on the very left, the pie chart here shows you pre-pandemic how advertisers, the distribution of advertisers across all media channels, television, radio, out of home, and so forth. And you can see the majority are major marketers. the big automotive firms, FMCG firms, etc. SMEs still make up over 40%. But now look at the middle. We can see that actually 72% of, we can see that digital ad spend, put it this way, 72% of overall ad spend by SMEs is digital. Because low barriers of entry, you can switch it on, switch it off, can target the right consumers and so forth. It's essential for them. And just as SMEs are also important for the cross-border exchange of goods, so digital advertising increasingly cross-border. So we find in our own study that around 15% of digital ad spend within the EU 27 is cross-border, meaning an Italian advertiser spending an ad in Germany, in Poland, or a Polish advertiser in France or in Italy. So targeted ads are essential for SME success because they need to measure diligently return on investment. There is no penny to waste. And targeted ads allow them to minimize that wastage and do effective advertising without a lot of non-working budget. They can reduce the gap with targeting between the product on the one hand and the consumer and with the fit of the product on the other. But it's also important for SMEs to continue to grow, and they need digital advertising as a fuel to expand their business. And it's not just me saying that or us saying that as IAb Europe, but it's in fact something that even Margarete Vestager has underscored, that the ability to find relevant customers for SMEs and to advertise to them is pivotal. Now, my second point, I mentioned that the SMEs that we have in Europe are often also of cultural significance. For instance, they produce goods of geographical indications, GIs, or traditional specialties guaranteed, TSGs. This is a 75 billion euro market. And a report issued by the Commission itself is actually stressing that relevant advertising and marketing is crucial for those goods to thrive and to continue to remain a cultural asset in Europe. French sausage, Italian wine, and so forth. And Italy makes a very good case study in all of this. There was an in-depth article in the FT that looked at how, during the pandemic, Italy's digitization accelerated. There was a similar report by PricewaterhouseCoopers in Italy, which elaborated this in more detail. There was a wonderful story that I picked out from this FT article about a tie maker from the shores of Lake Como, who at the age of 70 was looking at targeted advertising and search engine optimization to turn his very analog business online. We see similar things, for instance, if you look at the regional concentration of eyewear, eyeglass makers in northern Italy, or the leather industry, the textile industry, which are often kind of mono industries for a particular town or a region, which need to sell online. Meaning if they can't find relevant customers, it has knock-on effects for the entire social fabric of the region. The tourism sector over-indexes on digital ads, in particular SMEs. So overall, we know on the top left here, you can see tourism spend as tourism as a share of GDP for Europe and other countries. But fundamentally, I want to direct your attention to the bottom left, where you have small advertisers, the small tourism business, the local hotels, the tour guides, and others, which over-index on digital. So for these small businesses, it's very important to be able to reach customers through digital means. And this is becoming ever more important as the entire travel experience, from search and discovery, booking flights, hotels, to in-destination planning, becomes digital. Beyond SMEs, targeted advertising is also important to help European champions thrive. We've seen record influx of venture capital money in Europe, with Q1 2020 sparking new all-time highs. And indeed, we saw in Q1 many new unicorns being minted in some of the key markets in Europe alone. And we can see, as I mentioned at the outset, that for these companies, it's essential to use targeted advertising to competitively find new customers, reduce churn, and so forth, to enhance their overall profitability to become competitive on a global stage. For instance, Delivery Hero, the delivery company from Berlin, used targeted ads to reduce customer acquisition by around 42%. And if you look at the job postings that these companies post, you'll find a lot of the terms and phrases in there that are important for Europe and its move towards a digital workforce around data visualization, statistics, analytics, and so forth. And you also find that these companies, they're hiring advertising specialists in-house, not outsourcing them to an agency, because it's so important for them. Digital advertising is an intrinsic part of the business, so vital that it can't be outsourced. And we can see in particular how digital natives, which are called digital endemics, how much they spend and need to spend on marketing, which is predominantly digital. Here's an example of a range of companies on the left, which have recently IPO'd, mainly in the US, but we also have Delivery Hero here from 2017 as a benchmark. You can see tremendous growth in revenue, but also tremendous growth in marketing, which often outstrips revenue growth. So getting market share, getting stickiness is essential for these businesses, and marketing is the key vehicle to do that. Lastly, when we look at European media businesses, publishers, who have not always been able to thrive in the old world of digital advertising, they're undergoing massive strands of innovation. For instance, here from Adform, a European ad tech company, a study shows that it is in particular European publishers and European web domains which already have so-called first-party IDs implemented, i.e. privacy-compliant new ways of using data, first-party, not third-party data, for advertising purposes. So we can see here now a new line of innovation taking place in the media industry. And I think it's important that we understand how can we support it and not undermine it in order to ensure that we have this vibrant media ecosystem. And lastly, this doesn't just affect the press, but also the audiovisual sector. As these two charts on the left here show, there's a growing convergence between digital video on the one hand and linear television on the other. But targeting and data-driven innovation belong together. And broadcasters and others, they need an environment where they can provide addressable solutions that are able to allow them to compete with global platforms and new advertiser demands about more granular ways of reaching consumers on television. And I think here is a media innovation paradox, as I call it. On the one hand, with the European Commission funding a range of studies and initiatives to reboot the European media sector, in which the notion of personalization often reigns supreme. However, at the same time, a blanket ban on targeted ads would have a knock-on effect on exactly what the European Commission tries to achieve. So we need to find a real rational balance here and not fall into ideological arguments. To conclude, I think it's pretty clear that targeted advertising, it is about business, but about much more than that. About SMEs, companies of cultural significance. It is about a growth engine for European digital endemics, European champions, and they also support pluralist media landscape. It's important that we find a key way how Europe can marry privacy and data innovation. And lastly, a point that I think is often overlooked. This isn't fundamentally just about advertising. We are having this discussion within advertising, but just because advertising is the first big industry where privacy and social values in that regard and data innovation collide. But this will happen in every other industry. So if regulation and industry work together, the ad industry can be a bellwether and a blueprint on how to find a genuine European way that enables both the protection of consumers and the development of innovative business models for a data-driven economy to the benefit of all citizens and consumers. And with that, thank you very much. I hope you could hear this clearly now, and I'm going to pass back to you.
And I was sure about, so precious is your indication from your point of view. So I jot down a lot of things while you were talking about the position of the situation and the IAB point of view within this position. But I would like to hear, so thank again, Daniel, for being the trigger of the meeting today. So I would like to pass the word to Greg, the IAB public policy chief to put in conjunction what Brando Benifei mentioned before. He talked about trust, and Daniel talked about and touched a lot of points. He mentioned that it's a matter of working together to save the SMEs that are the backbone of the European economy. So, Greg, from your point of view, what's a comment regarding the Brando Benifei talks and the position of IAB Europe towards this direction? So, Greg, up to you.
Thank you very much, Alberto, and thank you very much for the invitation, but also for this opportunity, because it's a very timely organized discussion. We have been closely following and proactively engaging in the policy making and legislative process around the DSA. I think that that indeed, the points about the critical nature of targeted advertising and in general of advertising business model that were made by Mr. Benifei, they are relevant. Obviously, Daniel has provided us with a wealth of knowledge, very specific and insightful findings. But just taking a step back, I think we need to remember what the DSA proposal was intended to do, and it started as an opportunity to revise the existing e-commerce e-commerce directive with rules in particular on liability regime. DSA was never intended to revise existing privacy and data protection laws, which are to a great extent regulating digital advertising to the extent it relies on data and personal data in particular. And I think if we ask Daniel, though it's probably also evident from his presentation, anyways, that will be an effect that will be all digital advertising. So this is quite critical, because that allows us to sort of to establish that there is already quite a lot of ground that we have covered within the existing law. Now, what the DSA could, however, usefully do is indeed try to build on existing initiatives, and I think even discussions within the industry that are directed at ensuring that there is appropriate level of trust and transparency across the value chain, and also with the user. So with that in mind, what I would say is that as IAb Europe, we've been actually very supportive of the requirements in the original DSA proposal as put forward by the Commission that seek to improve the overall business-to-business and business-to-consumer transparency of digital advertising. So that's something proposed under original Article 2024, and as I'm saying, I think it's quite in line with what the industry has been trying to do. The DSA also does helpfully confirm the important role of standards and codes of conduct, and the fact that they can play a role in enabling industry practice to adapt to a certain standard. So we in this industry, there's quite a lot of work on standardization to make sure that we don't work in silos, but all the industry players, they collaborate efficiently. So I think with that in mind, recognizing that role of standardization is actually a positive thing. And there is a proposal for a code of conduct on online advertising under Article 36, original Article 36 of the Commission proposal. But just coming back again, to the Parliament, as the negotiations have been advancing, indeed the discussion on targeted advertising became yet more prominent, and it's been a heated discussion with several claims about what should or shouldn't be done. We do believe that any discussion around online advertising should be really fact-based. So even when we are talking about additional transparency requirements, these should be prescribed, keeping in mind what already the existing law does provide for. So, for instance, when we look to the GDPR, we will see that there is quite a lot of disclosure that is mandatory. One has to reveal information about the data controller, about data processing purposes, about legal basis used for that processing. Users can also complain accordingly. So there is quite a lot already in the existing law, and this is why it's critical for the DSA not to undermine that existing law, which in fact data protection authorities, including Garante, and we have seen the recent work of Garante, are interpreting the law as we speak and providing more guidance. And again, Garante would be the case in point. And the same would be true for these quite radical and extreme ideas with a ban on targeted advertising, or even some of the restrictions or limitations. So prescribing only the opt-in or opt-out approach, whereas at this point in time, we actually do have yet more flexibility around what kind of legal basis should be used. So I think we need to keep all of that in mind. We don't necessarily we quite recognize the importance of the discussions around the Digital Services Act, but it's also equally important not to treat it as a potential panacea to all different problems or challenges that we have online. And I think advertisers would know that these are not only problems to do with or challenges to do with data, but there are also challenges to do with content moderation, with brand safety. So there's quite a lot, and I don't think we should aspire to solve everything within the DSA, especially if there is already quite a lot in the existing law. So Alberto, I would probably stop here. I hope this is somewhat useful, and I look forward to more.
Thank you, Greg. You're very clear in your explaining the IAB position. So I would like to add to trust. You mentioned transparency, and then not undermine the existing law that works. So I think that these are three things that I would like to bring, and then to keep the light on this, because I think that's the media businesses within their all their stakeholders need the trust, transparency, and be compliant to the law. No one of us and the big companies and the SMEs can do without this principle, I think. So thank you again, Greg, for sharing with us your point of view from IAB. And I like to make a step ahead with the other speakers. So I would like to ask Mariana Ghirlanda. So Mariana, thank you again for being here. You are with UNA together with us in this path to the trusted advertising, good digital advertising. So from your point of view, Mariana, I have a couple of questions for you. So there's, and we discuss a lot about that. There's a group of media European parliamentaries that are proposing to use only contextualized advertising or alternative form to targeted advertising. What do you think about that? So could contextualized advertising completely replace targeting advertising? What's your opinion on that, representing the advertising agencies and being the CEO of one of the most important advertising agencies in Italy?
Thank you for the question. And actually, we are talking about two different things, and they can work both together, but for sure they cannot substitute one or the other. I mean, they are not alternative. They are mutuals way of targeting. And contextual advertising is very important because is referred to the content and to the environment where the user is. So it can be useful, can work, but is not powerful at all as targeted advertising. I make you an example. Probably me and you are going on the same website for like a Airways website, and we are both looking for a flight somewhere, and we see advertising. Advertising contextualized would be the same for me and for you because we are on the same site. But I'm very into mountaineering ski, and I would click on every content that has to do with snow in this season of the year, while you are into scuba diving and you are not interested at all in the mountain. And so this is exactly the same the example, because it's both these content are contextual. You are on a place where you book a trip, and the content is fitting in the content environment, but they are not giving us what we are looking for. And this example explains exactly the beneficial part of targeted advertising for the user, because for me it's definitely more relevant to see something that I'm into and not something that has nothing to do with me. So it's not harming me in any way, and is giving me information more than taking something from me. So the experience of the user, that is what we are all trying to preserve, because users are what we are talking about. Here we spend a lot of time discussing about technicalities and discussing about the business impact that this will have. But at the end of the day, we are talking about the users. And I guess that the intention is to preserve somehow users. But what I see is that we are not giving them a better service. We are giving them a worse service. So I really don't think that the ban of targeted advertising has nothing to do with helping people on their daily digital experience. And I'm sure that contextual advertising that we've been using for ages, because before having the target advertising available, we have been always using contextual advertising, and we know exactly that it's not working at the same way. And on another end, if you think about the media buying is completely different, because you can follow a person and with the target advertising, and you are basically, I don't mind if I'm what is the context, but I like to have advertising about what I'm interested. And if I'm interested in skiing, I'm happy to see content about ski, even if I'm on a boring media site, and that where I'm for my work. And so following the user and not the content is really giving a better experience for everybody.
Thank you, Marianna. Following the user, so it's a good sum up of your speech now. So, but I know that you are to some extent in a different program of diversity and inclusion and social movement and action in your professional life. So what do you think about the targeted advertising and these kind of things? So do you think that's are there relationship between these two particular topics and how it personalized advertising can help these kind of things in to thrive and go ahead across the boundaries. So what's your opinion about that?
I see 2 points on this topic. The first one is that target advertising is the base, is the source of survival for the entire no-profit industry. And as you know, the no-profit, as we all know, the no-profit industry lives on donation, and we know that donation with target advertising are 5 times or 4 times, I don't remember the exact number, more efficient. So this is the first, like the first background I see here. So with the ban, we would really do a big damage to no profit, and no profit in Italy, but in many other countries, are very active on these items and are also having a social role that is very important, and they are closing the gap where the government is not present anymore. So this would be the first point.
Mm-hmm.
Something else that I see that is connected with diversity meant as a plural point of view, that is the base of a diversity culture, a diverse culture and inclusive culture. Is that what I see? I see that the EU itself is recognizing that this diversity is one of the main strengths of the European media industry, and is founding a project of content personalization for editorial content for a better delivery of news and information in the digital area. And this is a great project, but I don't really understand why personalization is perceived as a positive factor where targetization is evil and is meant to be completely the opposite. A better experience is a better experience for information, is both regarding news and advertising. So here I see something that is not very clear. And as Daniel said previously, addressable advertising is the main, or sometimes is the only source of revenue for publisher in the digital transformation age. And a ban would really undermine the plurality of source of information, because it would threaten mainly the small publishers that really are living on it. And this would be something that is completely against the principle of freedom of information. And the last drawback of this would be that if the digital advertising and mainly targeted advertising is funding is the business model that is giving us the option to browse internet for free, can you imagine that if you have to buy a subscription to browse the internet, of course, this would not be possible for the poorest part of the population. So on which point of view we see this matter, for sure, the ban of target advertising is a big damage also on these soft values.
Thank you, Marianna. Today when I was driving to come back home before the meeting, I was thinking about how could I do driven without a digital navigator in my iPhone. So that's basically one simple thing that help us in our life, and probably because of targeted advertising as well. So
Yeah,
it's
but
very
you know, the main issue is that we already have for sure a digital divide, because we have people that have a different access with different devices, and devices are expensive, and the connection can be expensive. But can you imagine if you have to pay for the services? Of course, the digital divide would be enormous. Can you just think about students if they have to pay to access online tools for distance learning? It would be a big damage.
Yes, I'm definitely with you, and thank you for remembering us this point. So that's crucial. I think even in the future, in the near future, in the long-term future of our respective life after the pandemic, more than before, more than expected, I guess. So thank you, Mariana. I know that you have other meetings, so I think that we are on time. So would like to have you here since you can. So thank you for your point of view. And then Roberto. Roberto, thank you for being here. Roberto is the president of NetCom and one of the pioneers in the media digital industry, with a very long experience on that, and with a different point of view from your position as a president of NetCom. Roberto, a couple of questions for you, and every comment about what has said so far, it's more than welcome. But a simple question: do you think that in a world without targeted advertising, publishers could continue to thrive and grow? It's a simple question, but I know that you have a long experience to give us your opinion on that.
Well, thanks a lot. I was really impressed by the contribution that have been brought and have been put into that discussion by all the participants. It was very interesting to hear all the different points, which of course I support. And of course, the answer is that since I've been in the publishing industry in the last 30 years, without advertising, it's very difficult for publishers to survive. And target advertising is, of course, the source of revenue, as has been said, also for the small publishers and for the small industries. And without target advertising, it's very difficult for the small enterprise to develop new products, to develop new markets, to compete with the big giants. So, as Daniel underlined in his introduction, that is a key resources to fund all the different development of the small industries and of the SME, small enterprise in Europe, and in particular in Italy. As all people knows, Italy is made mainly by small and medium-sized enterprise, and without target advertising, it's really impossible in the future to target the revenues and the margins needs to survive for the small industries. And also, of course, there is an issue that often I've been discussing. Internet has been capable to bring to the consumers price down and products to the right price. So margins have decreased for the enterprise, both for the intermediaries, for the distributors, and for the retailers, and for the brands themselves. So without target advertising, it would be very difficult to have a balance between cost and margins. Also because, of course, the big giants, the big groups are capable to have an economy of scale to compete on low margins and big volumes. So it is really impossible to think to an industry, to a publishing industry, to a retail industries in the digital economy without target advertising, not only to target, of course, the customers, but also to develop new products, but also to develop new markets. In that context, of course, all that said, I think even difficult to imagine to the fact that even in the in communication before digital, segmentation and target was a key issue in marketing, and it's really a nonsense to think to an industry in the next future that is not capable to use tools of segmentation, of digital segmentation, to use very ancient words, and target marketing. Say that, it's very important also to say that if I look to all our research that we made, we have 170 research made in the last 3 years on the behavior of the consumers. What was said is that it's really impossible to think to a digital relation between the offer and the demand without those opportunity to personalize the offer. The consumer, the customer want an offer which is personalized. He wants more and more the personalization of the product, the personalization of the communication, the personalization of the logistic, the personalization of the packaging. So there is a need of personalization, which of course needs to be taken into account in the next future. And so personalization, reduction of margin, increase in cost are all elements that bring us to say that we need target advertising to have a right relation between the demand and the offer. And without that, it would be very difficult to compete and to serve the customer of the next digital customers. I believe that there are other issues that has to brought to the discussion, because also in terms of sustainability, for instance, we know for sure that the more you have to communicate. If we don't have target advertising and we want to communicate in a broadcasting mode, as it was the television mode in the past, because you don't have the capability to be more selective in making target advertising, you have for sure more energy consumption, because you have more cloud consumption, you have more, of course, consumption of digital instruments to go to your consumer and to your customer. So also from a point of view of sustainability, to think to a future in which you cannot target your communication, that is against all what we are discussing about the sustainability of the digital in the future, taking into account that all the consumption of energy in our digital economy is related to the communication, to the cloud, to the management of data. All that said, I really understand the people and the politicians that are somehow supporting the idea that target advertising, they fear target advertising. Because of course we know how the communication, the segmentation in the communication, the target advertising in the political environment, and also in the health environment, can be very dangerous, both from a social point of view, from a political point of view, and from, let's say, the health environment in which target advertising can be a very dangerous issue. But we have many other tools to manage those issues. We have the GDPR, we have the privacy that is coming along in terms of discussion. We have many other tools to manage that fear that I understand about youngsters, about young people, about the social and political impact that the bad use of target advertising can bring with it. But I'm really sure that we have first to find the right balance between those two issues. And second, there are many other regulation and directives that are able to manage in the right way those aspects.
Thank you, Roberto, for your clear point of view. You are so experienced in the, and as I mentioned before, you are a pioneer in the digital business. And we heard something about the position of Mr. Brando Benifei, that is to some extent close to this position, but we see, and you know, and you for sure see some new campaign. So, and as IAA Italy and as IAA, we are a bit concerned about that from some part of the European parliamentaries, especially by the Green, which there's a campaign which describe large areas of the internet economy as manipulation. We can make some parallel now with this position and other position regarding vaccine, anti-vaccine actions in Europe after the pandemic. So, what do you think about this position of some part of the politician in the European Parliament?
Well, I really understand their fear about that issue, and somehow, from a social point of view, political point of view, I really understand and I support those fears. So I think that I've discussed that issue several times with the philosopher Luciano Floridi about the phenomena of the echo chamber, of the fact that, of course, there is the digital is capable to empower also the bad feelings, the bad ideas, and the wrong ideas, so I do perfectly understand and support that fears. But it's like the nuclear energy. The nuclear energy. I'm a nuclear engineer, and I voted against the nuclear energy 30 years ago. But today we have had a good evolution of the nuclear, and I think that nuclear today is very different from what it was 30 years ago. So what I think is that the technology and the regulation is able to find the right way to find a solution, both to the fears that we have been describing and to the needs that both the consumers and the industries needs using this new way of digital target advertising, which is not new because, as we were saying, since ever we had segmentation and targeting in the communication. So I think that technologies and regulation is able to find the right balance between the two needs to have a sustainable and transparent and market in which people can find the right ideas and aggregate around the right ideas, and the fact that industries and consumers can find the right way to communicate in a sustainable, personalized, and constructive and value-added way. By the way, I've been discussing that issue in the health sector, where the health sector, of course, is a very sensitive sector, and in which, of course, the protection of the data is a very important issue. But at the same time, you need the data of your patient to make research and to make epidemiological analysis. And the technology now is evolving in a way in which the patient and the customer and the citizen will be able to manage his data in a way to use the data when he wants, in the proper way, giving his data to the let's say, to the counterpart in which he trusts. And trustability is, as it was said, the big issue. You need to have a relation, a trustable relation between the consumer and the industries, whatever industries we are speaking, from the consumer industries to the health industries. And I think that technology and regulation are able to find the right balance on that important topics that we have been discussing today.
Thank you, Roberto. We started, and Mr. Brando Benifei started talking about trust, and you, in the end, mentioned the trust and trustability. So I think that's I think that we cannot do without this as an industry. But I'm sure that, and I'm interested to understand what's the idea of Greg about the Greens initiatives campaign, and report. So what do you think about that, Greg?
Thank you, Alberto. Indeed, I wanted to add a word or two on that. We have read the report and familiarized ourselves with that campaign, and we did even speak about this publicly in a short reaction. And actually, I released a bit more in-depth analysis earlier today. And I think what I would want to say two things. So one is the or maybe to start with, recognizing or discussing certain challenges online. This is obviously a fair thing, and I think we as the industry, also in good faith, we should be also doing that. But once more, we should base our discussions on facts. So that report to us, upon review, does ignore the fact that there is already law that regulates the use of data. Now we can separately discuss how well that law functions. And there plenty of people would probably have their own views, but it's important to make that very first recognition. To recognize that. And then separately, this report speaks at length, to issues such as disinformation, for instance, or such as certain mischief when it comes to political advertising. And we have seen it also observing and engaging with EU policymakers. That there are initiatives that are trying to address this. So on this information side of things, that there's, for instance, a self-regulatory instrument, Code of Practice on Disinformation, that we are also a signatory to, and that is now being revised. On political advertising front, there is going to be a legislative proposal, we understand, just in over a month from now on by the European Commission. So there are initiatives, and we shouldn't ignore that, and we shouldn't propose, or we shouldn't attribute everything to the digital advertising industry, or maybe to the use of data, personal data, in digital advertising. And I think one other reflection, both on the disinformation and political advertising, as we have also, there's a lot of literature about that. I think all of that would point to the fact that these are very complex phenomena. So it would be not really the right approach to say, there's like only one reason why this is happening, because it's a mixture. And so and accordingly, the response, including the policy response, should take that into account. And I think we've mostly seen actually suggestions that a successful policy response would be a mixture of different things. So of course, the tech players, probably also advertising, they should play their role, but there should be also a great focus on media literacy, educating users on the fact that they should take it with a pinch of salt, what they are, how they are consuming content, what they are consuming, what kind of content they are consuming, so on and so forth. So these are quite important, I think, considerations, and it just goes to show that some of these online challenges are not as black and white as they are often sort of characterized by some stakeholders or political forces. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg, for your point of view. So we are coming to the end of this very interesting meeting, from at least for me. So that's a lot of added value point of view, and we put together different point of view. So many thanks to all of you. But in order to coming to the end, I would like to have a tweet from all of you. I would like to start, ladies first, from Marianna, to give your tweet to the audience to close our meeting.
I prepared the tweet, but I'm changing it now because
I'm
I
so
was
happy about
inspired.
that.
Because I was inspired by something that Greg said. He said, the industry is in good faith. I represent the industry in terms of the operators of the industry, and I confirm we are in good faith. We really would like to give the best chance for advertiser, for users, for publisher. And in good faith, we try to follow all the regulation as much as we can, in the sense that when we get to understand exactly what they are asking. And so with the word good faith, I want to close this, my point of view on this item.
Thank you, Mariana. Thank you again for being here today. So I would like to leave the floor to Roberto. Your tweet.
My tweet is very simple. Consumer first. Consumer want personalization and trust. And industry have to work on those two words using all the legal tools and technology tools that can give an answer to the expectation of the consumer.
Thank you, Roberto. So, Greg, it's your turn.
Yes. Well, I'm not sure if I'm stealing from Roberto, because I wanted to highlight enhanced transparency and trust and transparency for the industry, but also for the consumer, for the benefit of the consumer.
Thank you, Greg. So you sum it up very well. So I would like to finish with the trigger of our meeting today. So Daniel, we started with you and with your inspiration from your we started from your report. So I would like to conclude with your tweet the meeting of today.
So of course I would need to direct the attention towards my report, but the URL is quite long. So there would be a small bit.ly link to compress the URL, which I would put in and say hashtag SME, hashtag innovation, hashtag privacy, and then say privacy and targeting can work together to drive the European digital economy.
So thank you, Daniel. So I'm going to come to an end with my 2 cents. I think that there is no digital life; it's only life. So I think that's we can conclude the meeting today. Thank you again for all the speakers. Thank you, Daniel, Greg, Marianna, Roberto. We are on time, and thank you for being here. Thank you to the audience, and I hope that we created added value and inspiration that is in line with our IAA. We are going to continue to shed the lights on this, so we will organize new meetings on this topic. So you will find all the links regarding parliamentary document campaigns in our website. So we are on time. Again, thank you all for being here, and I hope to find you in the next meetings organized by IAA or from other associations. So thank you again, and have a nice evening. Bye bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye to everybody. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.